Hey, welcome back to the show. We're so glad you're here. We have Can Do Kids here, Davy Liu, the founder and owner of this incredible creative solution for children. So good to have you.
Thank you very much, Isaiah NG. It's my pleasure to be, podcast today.
For those of you who are listening, we just got a chance to meet Davy at the homeschool conference in Texas. He was there and had such a riveting, I will say riveting. It was very eye-catching, your booth was. Obviously, he has a lot of really beautiful animation. He's got a gift from the Lord regarding drawing and animation and has quite the story as he used to work for Disney. We're going to get into that in a little bit here. But we got to meet him at the homeschool conference. Here's some of his story, which we're going to invite him to share with you guys today. It's pretty powerful testimony.
Yeah, I think there's some practical insights from, raising up kids that learn differently to, voting with your dollar and finding better solutions to, I think things we don't know yet as the Spirit leads. So This is going to be really cool. And I'm so glad you're spending the time with us because you're having a unique but important impact by bringing quality books and videos to children in the Christian world. And we so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, working at Disney for over 10 years, I recognize what Disney does. Everything represents excellence. So I want to continue to carry that through Can Do and really just letting kids that know that you can do all things through Christ.
That's so good. So we'll jump into that in a second, but first we want to share a little bit about something.
That's right. So as you guys know, in the Courageous Parenting Podcast, we've been sharing about some really awesome sponsors that have been helping to make the Courageous Parenting Podcast possible. And one of those has been Master Books. They offer many different curriculum choices for homeschooling families. And this year we are getting to benefit from that in a sense that we are doing that with our kindergartners, some of our high schoolers, and even our 8th grader. And so we want to invite you guys to take advantage of a giveaway that we're doing with them at masterbooks.com/courageous, where you could have a chance to win an entire curriculum set for the year. And it doesn't matter what age your kid is, because we actually have 3 different packages. So if you're the winner, you get to pick if you want one of the younger packages, one of the middle-age packages, or one of the high school packages. So one of the things that I've really loved about Master Books has been that they have so many different options for science and that they're all creation-based. And I think that that's really like the foundation. If you've been listening to the Courageous Parenting Podcast for any amount of time, you know that we have a very high standard for making sure that what we're teaching our kids and exposing them to comes from a biblical world view, and that we are being engaged as parents and intentionally teaching them when there's something that's from a secular worldview, anti-God, anti-Bible, pointing that out to them and making sure that they're equipped with the answer for what they do believe and why when they are asked. Masterbooks.com is helping us to be able to equip our kids as we're using this curriculum. So go check out the giveaway at masterbooks.com/courageous.
So good. You're so good at that.
Well, I genuinely love them. Okay. But today I'm so excited to be talking to Davy because what he is doing comes from that same perspective of coming from a biblical worldview, understanding the spiritual battle that we are in for our kids' hearts, and that there is another company called Disney that actually has a very, I'm just going to say it, demonic, and there is a agenda that is scheming, that is led by the enemy, and it wants our kids' hearts. And there's this element of competition when we are trying to raise our kids with a biblical worldview, and we want tools, right? We want tools, Davy. We want good movies. We want good books that are going to be able to like catch our kids' attention. And that's just the realities. There's a competition out there. And the Christian world hasn't really been producing a lot of things that have had the excellence that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, when I was going to Sunday school, and then growing up in Sunday school, I mean, I recognize that the American kids and the high school teacher in Sunday school told me that the Christian kids that grew up in America 18 years, after 4 years of liberal college or Christian college, less than 5% retain their faith. This is 1995, and then when I saw the statistic that the Lion King came out in 1994, and then 1996, 99.9% of every child knows Simba, Hakuna Matata. I'm going like 2 years. It took Disney for an animated film to evangelize their agenda to the world. I'm going like, wow, how can the Bible become like a beautiful animated film like we did with the Lion King, which is the Lion King is actually a biblical gospel story of Moses. And that's when I got the inspirations that, animated films that has biblical stories. And they don't have to be literally like the story like Jesus or Noah. You actually can be very creative using the animal. So that's what the vision that I have after working on Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Mulan, and The Lion King. That's when I got that inspiration that, children love the animals. And that's when I got the inspiration of creating this beautiful, cute little fox named Kendu. And Kendu's name comes from "You can do all things through Christ." So I wrote the stories doing Disney when how the animal discovered Noah's Ark, and I pitched it to Disney. And there's one guy in there says, "Hey, can you take the two animal, go in there 2 by 2, 2 Mr. Turtle and then 2 Miss Dove?" I said, "No, can do. The Bible says 1 male, 1 female." So that was the struggle that I saw in the project development here in Los Angeles. And then when I saw the Slater film in 1998, and as a believer, I saw they're spending $23 million developing a boy who want to be a girl. That's when I realized this is serious. This is not just a dream, a job, or it's a personal conviction. It's a spiritual warfare. It is no longer, it wasn't funny anymore. It was a dream job until I became convicted that I did not want to face my Savior in eternity, to know that the gift that God's given me, that I've contributed something that is hindering children. I love what Jesus says. He says, "Let the children come to me and do not hinder them." I said, I do not want to be that verse that I hinder these little children. And I want to be the part. Yeah, I want to be the part that, contribute, that let the children come to me.
Mm-hmm. So. There's another verse that comes to mind when you were saying that. It's in Matthew, I think it's in chapter 16, that says, "It'd be better for a man to have a millstone hung around his neck and thrown into the depths of the sea than to lead one of these little ones astray," or into sin is another translation, right? And so what is Disney doing? They are literally leading children into the temptation of sin, leading them astray. And so people who are helping to get their agenda across are actually participating in that, and they will be held account. They will be.
Yeah. I remember when Lion King came out, at the time, it was the best new animation that existed. It had some innovations, and you literally were one of the artists drawing the lions and some of those key characters and so forth there, and you became convicted. I want to just touch on this for a second, because there's a lot of families where the husband has a job, maybe that part of what they're doing is convicting to them. And it's very hard, though, being a provider, to shift gears out of something into where the unknown is, and something that is glorifying to God.
You mean standing up for that conviction that you also experienced, right? And I think that a good question that might be encouraging to some of the providers, some of the men who are listening, or women who want to encourage their husbands, who maybe their husbands are wrestling, like, I don't know if I want to work for this master anymore. What word of encouragement would you have for them through your testimony? Because you made a big, hard decision.
Yeah, for me is, I always reflect on that verse. For me is, Matthew 6:19-20. I mean, for me, I grew up, I had low self-esteem growing up, honestly. Even struggling, I work on all these films because I was the youngest of 7. So I grew up, I'm the youngest of 7. So all my families are Chinese, so they're automatically straight A kids, except me, I had a straight F. So my mom always thought I was a Forrest Gump. And so I always wanted to hear my mom says, "I'm proud of you." But, growing up in Christian home, I didn't understand what God did to me. I mean, did he just forget to give me IQs? Or so when I had this dream job, all I want my mom is like, mom to say, "I'm proud of you." It was so important for me as a boy growing up and working at Disney. So every film will come out, and then my mom wouldn't go see it because he thinks it's cartoon, and he'll talk about my next door neighbors being a doctor or lawyers. And then when I saw the verses where I was pursuing in Matthew 6:19-21, says, "Where your treasure is where your heart is," your heart. And where do you store your treasure? Now, as a believer, I have a great job. I mean, everybody, Disney came to my school. They were looking for 8 kids out of the whole world. I was one of I don't want to say lucky. God chose me to go to the Disney. But I didn't know that conflict of my faith and my income and my dream clash. And it was so convicting, so strong that I saw myself in eternity of making this choice will change the trajectories of the treasure that I store in heaven. Yeah, I'm saved through Jesus Christ, but I certainly know that God gave me another chance to win souls. And for me was, I want my mom to say, "I'm proud of you." So I want to win an Academy Award. I want to win an Oscar for my mom. And God says, don't strive for those dreams. Your mom's endorsement is nowhere near what God says, that you are my, fearfully, wonderfully made. And so my biography in China, it says, "Not a marble, but a diamond." So I always see that my mom sees me as marble, but God sees me as diamond. So this biography showed up to remind every child that, in every child's parent's eyes, your kid are a diamond in your eyes. And then when I saw how important that was, that's when all my low self-esteem was filled with the fullness of Christ, that I recognized that my heart, my treasure, my dreams, everything that I'm worth, that the pursuing the success is all measured in this infinite of eternity of success in God's eyes. And that's not when in a billion an Oscar is nowhere near winning one child to Christ.
This is such a good message because there's so many ways to measure intelligence. And in the academic world, it's measured in a very singular way. And I think what you're hitting on is important for parents to hear, especially if they're home educating their children, or regardless, is that God made each child unique and for different purposes. And there's brilliance that's possible through all children, but it's going to look different. And our job is not just to look at our children in a singular fashion of intelligence, but to look at the natural expression of intelligence that comes out of each child in the way they're wired, not how we're wired, because that's usually what parents tend to project naturally. And instead look for the brilliance in their children that's unique. And I would say that, so then you're in this environment with 6 children, straight A's, very academic, and academic culture in your family. How did you come out of that and discover the brilliance God had for you? What's that journey about?
Yeah, so I came to America in 1982. I was 13. I couldn't understand a word of English. I went to school and then had this class called art class. We didn't have art class in Taiwan. So art class, all you give in is not test paper, just blank sheet of paper. So I loved it. I don't need translations or a dictionary. So that sheet of paper, my art teacher told me something that, hey, Davey, you can do it. I was like, yeah, right. No one ever told me I can do anything. So I drew something, a Chinese dragon, and I didn't think of anything of it. I just gave it to her as my homework assignment. And then she took that artwork into a competition in Florida. And then I won the national champion in Florida, then went to national in the whole 50 states. And then I won the top 20 in the whole United States. So that's when I knew that, okay, all right. So I thought I was living in a body of Forrest Gump until I realized that, hey, I got a gift to really draw a straight line. God gave me this extraordinary gift that no one had ever given me a blank sheet of paper, except my art teacher gave me a sheet of white paper. And through that white sheet of paper, I got to practice my creativity. And I always talk about that, in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. That's Genesis 1:1. That creativity is in all of us. It's God's first attribute, the biblical Bible. And I talk about how blessed that I am. I got to use that gift. And even though in my Chinese culture that we don't celebrate creativity, we celebrate manufacture, we celebrate following others, we celebrate being a cow instead of being a cowboy. It's really being a pioneer and doing something that your heart and you're chiseled to do this. Despite of my parents. My dad's going to celebrate 100 years old. He's still waiting for me to quit my day job so that I can go back and take over my old man's job in Taiwan. But I just knew that, my destiny and my passion and my gift, it is truly using my creativity that God's given me and to bring children to Christ through animations.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So fast forward now, you're leaving Disney and you're starting something new. Did you have some savings? How did you get started in this new endeavor? I think a lot of people are curious how they make that transition.
Yeah, so I left Disney in '98, and I was so blessed. I was able to get hired by George Lucas to work on Star Wars Episode 1, and it's during that 2 years I had that complaint that said these poor kids. I mean, they can't be watching Cucumber or Tomatoes for a million times. And this is 1999. I mean, that's all churchy kids is watching. Everybody's mimicking that.
VeggieTales.
Oh yeah, everybody's mimic their, and it's great. But VeggieTales don't do so well after Christian kids past 6 or 7, right? They don't have anything that's a little bit more polished, I call it. But here I'm always complaining, making fun of these poor kids, looking like tomato and cucumber. But I was like, wait a minute, what would you do if Christ was one of those creative people? He would do something about it instead of complaining. And so I got off my high horse year 2000. I moved from San Francisco down to here in Southern California, and I bought my humble house with my first wife. My first wife left me because she thought that was the dumbest choice that I ever chose to leave a very lucrative job. Good thing I had no kids at the time. And during the year 2000, I had a rep in New York, and then my illustration became the most creative original illustrator of the year 2000. So I was really blessed that I was able to stay home and do an illustration for Time Magazine, for GQ, for some big publishers. And that's when I realized that God gave me this time quietly in the garage, even though I was, devastated that I gone through a divorce. It was 4 years later, and of course, during that time, 9/11 hit. It was a really challenging time because I had no money in the bank, and I really need income. So I saw the verse that Jesus said, "There's one man that when he saw a hidden treasure, and when he saw it again, he hid it again, and he joyfully went to sell everything he has." When I saw that, I was a verse because I was on the verge. I have to be honest with you. I was working at freelancing for Disney on Lion Kings 2 and 3. I was on the verge of having no money and thinking about going back to Disney and get a really good salary. But that verse, it hit me because here I am. I have a house I can sell, but would I sell it joyfully? So this is 2002, and when I saw that verse, that was a confirmation that I knew that Christ did everything he knew how. He did not die of retirement. He died in his prime. And I was 32 at that time. And I saw myself, I said, if I go back to Disney again, I would never come out again because I knew that it's such a comfortable and great job. But when this verse hit me, that this guy sold joyfully everything he has to find this treasure. And I saw that treasure was to win souls for Christ. In its eternity, it's going to be worth it all. And then I literally next day put a for sale sign and I sold my house. And I moved to a humble studio, and that's when I began to develop this project, the Giant Leap, the Firefish, the slate of animated film, because I got to show the investor what this film will look like. And that's what these books are for. They're actually, I didn't create them as a book. I created them as an animation script. Mm-hmm. From animation script, I used this house money that I made, and I hired some people to help me develop the script, and all the product that you see here is basically my first house. And then I met my wife. And then my wife, Joan, we've been married 19 years, and she saw her beautiful house. So she became my first investor. She married me, and she was a widow, and her daughter, and three of us, we just worked hard at it. How do you translate the Bible so that the Bible can be seen? If the Lion King go to China and Muslim countries, so much more the righteousness and holiness of God. But it does require a beautiful artistry. It does require commitment, someone that believes in it, to love and to embrace, to really craft this beautiful artistry.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to the Courageous Parenting Podcast. We just want to take a moment to highlight some of our awesome sponsors who are they're making the Courageous Parenting Podcast possible. And so let's just take a moment and listen to the sponsors, and then we'll get back to the show. I'm not naturally artistic, at least not in the fine art sense. So when my kids showed early on that they loved art, I wanted to nurture that creativity. That's why we love Creating a Masterpiece. Their award-winning art programs are for everyone, ages 4-ish through 104 plus. Your family gets to practice drawing, using watercolors, charcoal, sculpting, painting, and so much more. And the best part, you get to do it all together, building relationships, making memories, and letting creativity grow. Visit creatingamasterpiece.com/courageous to sign up for one low rate for your entire family. That's creatingamasterpiece.com/courageous, because anyone can create a masterpiece.
Steve and I realized that we were getting too comfortable with the world's vision of how to raise our children.
What Angie and Isaac have done in creating this is literally phenomenal.
This program provided awesome scripture-based teachings and just some really great practical applications.
This class has just really rocked my world.
It has given me a vision for not just the different things that we might focus on as parents who are trying to raise our kids biblically, like how our kids are behaving or what we're doing with discipline, but also the things of the heart.
We now have a game plan to how we want to raise our children. We have so many answers to the questions that have been in our mind.
It's not just these hypothetical situations, or it's not just this, here's what I think you should do. It's, let me show you where in scripture this is.
Do your legacy a favor and yourself a favor, and just do it.
One of the best things that we've done this year, one of the best investments we've made this year, and I could not recommend it more.
We're no longer fearing dark days ahead, but we're so excited to raise lights, to be leaders for the next generation.
And when I came out with these slate of Bible storybooks, it took 20 years. I got published in China, these beautiful books. And then when they were published in China, this is a story of Noah's Ark, and this is a story of lion perspective of Daniel. This is the fish perspective of Moses parting the Red Sea. And then there's this one is the story of Jesus. Oops. this is the story of Jesus from the
And
donkey's
the English
perspective.
version.
Yeah.
I love
Right,
seeing
right, yeah.
yours are in Chinese, right?
Yeah, this is in Chinese, so I have it in English. I just want to show and tell. And then
Yeah,
when I
no,
got
I
published,
absolutely love it. I think it's cool that people can see both of them like next to each other.
yeah.
And I think
So-
also, you guys, before you continue for a second, Davy, I think it's important that people know where they can find these books. And so we'll share at the end, but would you just share right now, right during this part of the podcast as well, where they can find these awesome, look at this illustration, you guys, and he'll go through and maybe share like a brief synopsis in a second, but where can they find them?
Yeah, you can find our ministry website. It's called Kendu Kids, KENDU Kids, so .org.
Yep.
And you can find it there in our bookstore there. So
That's
these books won the best children's moral book in communist China in 2015.
Wow.
And they
And
share
these are-
gospel messages, just so
Yeah.
everybody's
And these
clear.
are story of the Bible. So again, I got invited to Billy Graham's headquarters in 2019, right before COVID. I got to talk about how I brought the gospel into a non-Christian country. I said, listen, if Disney can bring their stuff, why can Jesus? Right? Jesus told me to preach the gospel, not like a dove, but like a snake. We got to be as wise as a serpent, right?
Yes.
When I saw what Jesus did, 57 parables that he preached in the gospel of Matthew, Luke, and John, all the parable, none of them were Christian or churchy. And they were all very, very, very easy to understand for a little child to adult. And that's what I saw Disney use. The tool is really break down the morality into a really simple animal languages. And that's what I learned, that, man, children don't think like us. Children don't think in this theology format, but children love beautiful stories. And that's when I saw that, you know, if Disney can create the Lion King, then with God's help, I'm going to create the story for the King of Kings.
I love that, because that we should be producing things that are of superior quality. If
100%.
society is used to a certain experience and quality of receiving something, then us Christians should be trying to do even better than that. Not only with the story, not only with the words and the writing, but also the look and feel and the design, because that's what people are used to. How are we going to grab people if the quality of the acting and the quality of the illustrations aren't up to par?
Like it's a competition, actually. I hate to say it, but it truthfully is, because kids are exposed to all the other things. And the truth is, you guys who are listening, there's so many things that I want to tell you that I learned from Davy when we were at the homeschool conference. We could literally talk to him for probably an hour and a half or more. But, you know, for those of you who are listening, we want to be able to offer you guys a giveaway as well. So I'm going to share about it more at the end to remind you. But I do want to tell you, you got to find us on Instagram, because on Courageous Parenting and Courageous Mom and Resolute Man, we're going to be hosting a giveaway along with Davy. And you could win this beautifully illustrated book. It's called The Giant Leaf, which was your first product, right?
Right. Yep.
Right. Yep. And so you're going to want to find out information about where to find the giveaway. You can go to the courageousparenting.com website on the podcast. It'll be in the show notes, like always.
What I love is the strategy behind this, because you can't send something that is like a children's Bible to communist
like
China.
A track.
You can't send a track. You can't send a normal Bible. You can't send anything that is straight up, you know,
biblical.
Recognized as biblical truth. But what you've done is you've stayed true to biblical truth, but disguised it a little bit in different characters and animals and so forth. So you're telling the story, but through animals, which is attractive to children. How do you make sure that it translates to the children, even if maybe the parents don't even understand what's happening, or the government doesn't understand what's happening?
Yeah, so we're developing a curriculum. We're going to have it by January of 2025 in our next homeschool, all the conventions that we're going to be showing. We're going to have a curriculum to teach this as an allegory. How do you connect that with the biblical truth? So we're going to have that, just like Jesus explained in the parables. Without explaining the parable, you're going to think they're very baby, silly stories. So again, you know, the allegory is what you said, Isaac. It's like, how would I take a biblical story like Noah's Ark, that every kid know the story, but I surprised them from this little fox that he had a dream, and he lives in this slavery of dinosaurs, but he dreamed of this massive giant leaf someday will come, and that he will find his new freedom when he finds this giant leaf. So I won't spoil the surprise. So, you know, this journey of this finding giant leaf, and then with the apes don't believing, you know, the floods coming, dinosaur says, we don't believe in no rain. We believe that we're big and mighty. No rain ever compared to us. So it's an allegory of, you know, kids, are you going to be confident like you think you're going to be a mighty T-Rex, or are you going to be like Kendu, humble little fox that take a giant leap of faith? And so on the way there, he found little monkey had a dream of the giant leaf, and there was all eating bananas. And eventually they heard about there's a little myth of animal eater, right? There's animal eater has destroyed their forest for 120 years, but those who went inside the animal eater's belly found out animal eaters is actually animal saviors. So what you're seeing in that book right there, Angela, that you flip in, is actually the highlight of an animated feature film that's coming out in the theaters. And we're producing them to a beautiful, epic animated film directed by Disney directors and produced by Disney producers that love Jesus. Because our goal is really, if the world is making that kind of benchmark, so much more us, what excellence. Why? Because that's what Christ does. Christ should be the largest children's ministry and not the secular world.
I love this. So you guys, I have to tell you, when I came to the booth at the homeschool conference, and I started talking to Davy, and he started taking me through this story, the giant leaf, and showing me through allegory, but this story, right, from an animal's perspective about Noah's Ark. Actually. So here, if you're watching our YouTube channel, you guys might not know, but we actually have the podcast on YouTube also. So go and check that out. There's a video. And so you can actually see inside the book, which you just said is going to be becoming a full animated film. Right. And you got some sponsorship. Who was the sponsorship? Was it?
So I got to keep that part confidential, but we have 17 million raised out of the 35. So it's an investment from a major investors here in California. So, I can continue to look for the rest of the 18 million. So if one of the audience wants to be an investor that can invest in something that is same as lucrative as the Lion King, except this for the King of Kings, you can reach out to us at candokids.org.
I love that. It's such a good cause. For those of you who are listening, I mean, we've done podcast episodes on voting with your dollar. We've talked about the dangers of Disney, and just that parents would be aware of the hidden agenda that's in there. And maybe we can talk about that in the future too. But one of the things that you showed me, so for those who are watching, this is the animal eater. This is the ark, and the animals are scared to go into the ark. But there was another aspect of this video that I wanted you to share about, because this really was intriguing to me. You have this character. Is a
so it's actually that when the animal saw the mouth of the animal eater and they're contemplating, some people are frightened. And it's exactly the reflection of when you meet Christ, it's the same thing. Do you see him as a savior? Do you see him as a good man or a prophet or a liar? You have to make that choice of crossing that line. And that's why I make
a liar or the Bible's truth.
That's right. I make that very clear. And that's subliminal right there with the cross. I mean, this is exactly how every animal sees, is how every child sees who Jesus is.
But then you have this character that's in a lot of your books.
That's right.
Just explain that to those because I went through the whole thing with you and I was like shocked when you shared with me about what this animal represents.
Yeah, so that gazelle came from this book of Genesis, that there's an eternal gazelle, the angel, our angel Gabriel, and he's also in the book of Revelation. Mm-hmm. Basically, he is in all our 12 animated films. He is in the fish perspective, Moses parting the Red Sea. He is in the animal perspective of Jesus, lion perspective of Daniel. This is the story of the garden tree, good and evil. It's about these 4 little girl wants to be a beautiful hot chick in the garden, and then when they recognize if you eat this tree, good and evil, you will die or become the most beautiful pageant, the pageant beauty. But when Eve showed up, they sent her to see if you really die. So that's what I did with this, and then so this is where the origin of this beautiful story of the Gabriel, the gazelle. And the gazelles are inspired. Yeah, the gazelle was inspired by this character. So he's so we're going to be releasing the secret code, the giant leap. You actually can find the shadow of that gazelle. Despite of Kendu not knowing it, that gazelle continued to lead it. So you can see the shadow in every page in the book, so that kids will know that, so to speak, the are angels of God that, we may not know who God is, but God got us. He is always with us, and he is always watching us before you even know it.
It's so cool because in communist countries and so forth where Christianity is not allowed, these seeds are being planted with people, and then parents who are raising up their children to be Christians,
they're tools.
They're tools because the kids can easily identify what these. You can have discussions with your children too. So, and it just makes it fun for the kids.
You can almost see it. You said something so powerful. You said the word seed, and it just reminds me of the parable of the sower that Jesus shared, right? And how there are people who are doing house churches secretively in China. And they're evangelizing, and these house churches are growing. But if children can be exposed to these are the little seeds that prepare the soil of their hearts, if you will,
Yeah.
so that when they do meet someone who's a part of one of those house churches or someone who does share the gospel with them, it actually like connects the dots in their mind. And
Yeah.
then they remember these really sweet stories that they loved in their heart. And
Yeah.
then Jesus can reveal his truth to them. And it's more like their soil of their heart is prepared to accept him. And that just really gets me excited, because that is an element of children's ministry, if you will, as far as evangelism is concerned.
Yeah.
So now I have to shift gears back to this other part of this episode that we've been weaving back and forth in two things here. Is you made this transition, you're where you're at now. And my guess is, and this is from my own experience with God, is that often as you take steps out in faith, that God often shows up at the end of your own strength and just in time. And I see that it's like, financially, sometimes we've experienced that we just have to trust God in this. And all of a sudden someone gives money. All of a sudden something happens and God shows up through people. And I'm sure you've experienced a lot of that. And obviously your new wife, selling her house to contribute as your first investor.
That's amazing.
That's pretty amazing. And I just didn't want that to get missed, because I think a lot of people are scared to trust God to that level.
Yeah, I have to say I have to say those are reality, and those are some real fear. And it was very scary. I mean, when I was in my garage and when 9/11 hit, I mean, there's literally I couldn't pay my bills. I mean, these are real moments. A Christian, that someone believe, God's got Jehovah Jireh, but yet where is he? Right? Where is he? I mean, so what I'm struggling is no different, exactly what those guys in Old Testament or New Testament. It's really just, how do you experience something that doesn't make sense for me, that I believe this is what God calling me to do? But when I have wings from heaven, what's wings from heaven? When you have a little things like, the books that we just this summer, I have someone came back from China, came to California, and says, thank you so much. I was in China, and right now the crazy dictator is dictating China, but I was able to find your beautiful Bible stories in a normal bookstores, and I can able to purchase it. Yeah. Those are winks that I have. And I'm able to buy those books legally without getting arrested. And I can shower this to the family and children in China. And those are things that I call winks. I mean, these are encouragement that has no price tag. There's no price tag.
No.
But it's absolutely just, it's an endorsement. It's like a hug from heaven saying, keep going, Davy.
Yes.
With God, nothing's impossible. Don't look at your circumstances, because your God is the God who sees victories, even though you're facing your Goliath. But God always seen that head on a plate of your hands. So I have to walk by faith. I can't walk by the numbers of my bank account. Because especially right now with this circumstance I'm in, people says, you crazy to live in California. Well, somebody got to live in Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, so I'm going to stay here. This is my industry of films. I'm going to be standing right here facing Goliath, and I'm going to keep fighting, because it's not me who's fighting. It is Christ who's fighting us, and I have to be faithful. Because I'm not promised till tomorrow. Tonight, the rapture might come. I want to do this well.
Wow. Way to be obedient to the Lord.
Okay, I have some questions, because you had the inside scoop on Disney. And that is just, it's rare when you get people who will actually talk about the agenda that's happening. And you were warned, you've shared a little bit of that testimony, but from someone who knows the purposeful, intentional agenda, you saw it, they were planning years ahead. Maybe you could share a little bit about how they were planning years ahead, but as a parent, as someone who cares about what your children are exposed to, what do you have to say to parents about Disney, and what warnings do you have for them? Like, just please share.
Yeah, I when I was there in Disney, and I was going to church at Pasadena, and I was telling the pastors, I would start telling the pastors what Disney is doing. At that time, 1998, 99, no one is really taking me seriously. They think, come on, Disney's doing that. They're just doing it for fun. But then, we're talking about 24 years later that every parent is feeling the heat. When I warned the pastor that Disney is doing this to children, they really weren't taking me seriously. I think sometime where church is a little bit, I don't know, 2 decades behind or something. I just don't see us Christian boycotting. I certainly don't want to boycott, because I feel like if the darkness is there, the light just has to be bright. I mean, if we shine as a light, the darkness has to flee. So what's going on? Why is Disney doing this? Well, when I was there in Disney in 1998, I was in the development, so we call it the cowboy level. Like there's 5,000 animator, there's only 50 of us. All we do is produce quality content that will impact the world, that will make billion. That's what we do. 50 of us, we're up there developing. Well, 50 of us up there, I would say 60% people they had a gay lifestyle. So as you can see, this is their normality. These are the people who make a difference. Now, in Disney, for some reason, it's like a bonus and to be gay, to work in that. I don't know what it is about artists. They're just so creative, but yet they have this different perspective of what family is. So of course they're dictating, they're taking their position and making their agenda known. So they sincerely believe that this is empathy. This is something that they call it, mercy and understanding, but they just are lost. They don't realize that they're being used by the demonic spirit. And so they're sincerely wrong. So what am I going to do? Here I am, and I'm seeing them. I mean, they're the nicest people, right? They're the nicest people. They just don't know the Savior. So I recognize that for them, this is their lifestyle. But for me, I know this is a demonic. This is absolutely a spiritual warfare. And I never knew that Mickey could be in that level until I sat there one time. One guy came up to me. His name is Royal Disney. He came up to our floor. And he was so mad because Disney stock was going down, because Disney never make any money of their films besides The Lion King in 1994. And Pixar is making all the hits. So Royal Disney, the nephew of Walt Disney, came up storming. He was the guy who runs the studio. He says, show me he was cussing. Show me every garbage that you guys are making right now in the next 20 years. So we had like a day and we show all the film that we were going to produce in the next 2 decades. And man, one of them is called Wildlife. It's about a boy wanting to be a transvestite. I remember Walt Disney in the Disney theater. He threw his pipe across. He was so upset. He says, who the heck? I mean, he just cussed across the room. He says, who decided to spend my uncle's money to make a boy want to be a girl? He fired the 3 executives. And those 3 executives of Disney at that time, they were all LGBTQ lifestyle. And Walt Disney says, my uncle would never approve of this stuff for children. So I can testify this is not Walt Disney's agenda. It is. So unfortunately, Walt Disney today is not owned by Walt Disney family. It is owned by public now. So I think Disney has many times been the fringe of going public and going for sale. So I know right now it's no longer owned by Walt Disney. So that's why you're seeing all this woke agenda that is embedded in Disney. And this is my theory. I really think the rapture is coming back fairly soon. And I think by doing that, it's exactly what Jesus says. Hindering kids, it's way faster than hindering parents or adults, because kids are vulnerable. You look at Hitler, you look at communist chairman Mao Zedong, you look at all these people, they begin with decayed children first. Mm-hmm. And that's what I saw what devil used is really using the tool of Disney to really, decay our generation. All you do. So when I started in first day in Disney says, get them before kids turn 10.
We're just going to take a moment to listen about You Thrive. Our children going through this summer, and it is so good to fill the gaps of financial education. We'll be right back to the show.
I want to pause for a second and share something that's been on my heart. This economy has changed, and it takes more to equip your children to thrive financially today. We can't just assume that sending them off to college or helping them get a job will make them successful. You Thrive Academy is filling in the gap left by educational efforts and offers a personal finance online course that's relevant to today's economy. I'm excited my teenagers are taking this comprehensive course knowing any gaps will be filled in financial preparedness. They're learning career readiness skills and how to manage their money through budgeting, saving, investing, borrowing, and protecting their assets. Make You Thrive Academy a part of your summer initiatives like we are. Go to youthrive.academy/parents, that's the letter U, and get 66% off retail, which is exclusive only for our listeners. Use the code COURAGEOUS at checkout before it expires. And again, that's youthrive.academy/parents.
Wow. Yeah. 10. They say if you get them before you turn 10, they love this Disney brand and their stories. They will sing the song, buy the product, and they'll tell their kids of their kids of their kids.
I just have to tell you something. I was recently reading a book by Sean McDowell, and it had some Barna Group statistics and other statistics on it. And this book was written about 5 years ago, but the average age that a person actually makes a decision on if they believe in God or not is age 11. How strategic is the enemy that he's like, we got to get them before age 10. Right? I mean, we see Satan trying to counterfeit everything that God has created. And you see that over and over again, even portrayed in some of these Disney films, right? Where they'll try to tell a story that seemingly is actually first shared in biblical scripture, and then they warp it and they change it to make it be something that is going to actually lead kids astray.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a war and a battle going on, but I think that a lot of parents for the longest time felt like there were no other options for them.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, am I going to be the parent that just says no to all entertainment because it's all down in the.
I know. Right. But currently right now I'm still in the battle. I mean, just like, I didn't want to make this into a book, even though I was book signing and a Christian kid came up to me and says, "Sir, thank you for not making your book look like a Christian book." I love it. It was an 8-year-old kid. He understands that there's a Christian product and then there is the, secular product. But, it's like the kid even understood the quality of it. And then, so really our goal is really produce this into an animated film that can be shown across the world. And the quality has to be just beyond what Disney's doing. And that's really what Christ deserves. So, I pray that we hopefully get our rest of our funding so that we can get this film take off. It takes 2 years and roughly about 2,000 animator to animate something that is price-worthy, beautiful animated film stories, for children.
Well, everybody listening, let's say a prayer for the movie efforts and the 18 million that needs to come in.
Yes.
If everybody listening just says a prayer right now, that would be so powerful. And where can people find more information?
Yeah, so just visit our website, candokids.org. And I also speak around the country or your churches. My testimony is from the Lion King to the King of Kings. So you can hear my testimony on our website.
So cool. One little fact that I forgot didn't come out. You depicted yourself that's in a major movie. Could you explain that real quick?
Oh my goodness. That means I gotta get up and I gotta show it to you. So since this is my studio, I happen to have it right over here. So
I love it.
Yeah, you got to be on the YouTube to see his.
All right.
Pretty cool.
So you guys can cut and just, So every Disney is true. Every Disney animator always want to put their personal signature in there. And then, so I did mine. So when I helped develop the story of Mulan, and then Mulan's a Chinese stories. And I saw Mulan has a hero character named, General Shen. And I was like, so one of the character designs saw my face. It's like, hey, maybe I could use you as a reference. Who would have known that stuck? So they turned my face into this beautiful animated characters here. And Disney licensing character right here. Yeah.
General Shen.
General Shen.
That's great.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. For those of you, again, I want to remind you, we have an awesome giveaway it's a beautiful book called The Giant Leaf. And again, it is going to be representing the new animated film that, Lord willing, will be coming out in a few years. And if you want to find out more, keep up to date. Where can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, so there's Instagram, Can Do Kids. So you can just go on Instagram, Can Do Kids. And if you want to look at our beautiful production, whatever, if your kids are into creative stuff, our film studio here in LA, it's called Can Do Films. So you can go to candofilms.com to see our beautiful productions.
All right,
Sounds
Davy.
good.
So good to have you on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.